What do they say? Some of the biggest hits in history were written in a few minutes. The Beatles surely prove that. Russ Ballard talks about two hits, songs that he recorded, but Russ is also famous for having other people record his song. He's the guy who helped America get back on the charts with You Can Do Magic. In the early 70s, he was in Argent, Hold Your Head Up. We already had a video on that. We'll put the link to that explanation in the description. In the summer of 1979, I was just graduating, ready to move away from home, and what came on the radio but Since You've Been Gone, Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore, produced by his old Deep Purple bandmate, Roger Glover. And Since You've Been Gone, written by Russ Ballard. But there's two songs and two big hits that we talk about in this clip. We had a long interview with Russ Ballard. It lasted like over 2 hours long. The other one helped give Ace Frehley of Kiss sort of his crowning achievement, sort of his bragging rights, which was, in the late 70s, all four members of Kiss released solo albums. All their faces were painted on each one of the albums, and they got their own crew to record with them. By far the most successful was Ace Frehley's album. It was the best album, not just because of freaky sales, but it really was the best of the four. And New York Groove was a song on there, which was also recorded before by Russ Ballard, but another big hit for Ace Frehley. We talk about those two big songs and Russ Ballard's brand new album where he redoes some of his old hits on Rock History Music. From the region of Hertfordshire, England, Russ Ballard quietly became one of the most influential forces in rock and pop music. Not by chasing the spotlight, but many times fueling it for others. Born on October 31st, 1945, Ballard first made waves in the late 1960s as the lead singer and guitarist for Argent, co-writing and singing the big hit Hold Your Head Up from the band's third album, All Together Now. They had a few songs that got a lot of airplay. Sweet Mary in 71, Hold Your Head Up was from 72. It was followed by Tragedy the same year, and the rock anthem God Gave Rock and Roll to You. As a solo artist, he built a cult following with albums like his self-titled in 74, which included I Don't Believe in Miracles, which would later be recorded by Zombies lead singer Colin Blunstone, and Canadian C.B. Victoria. In 76 came Winning, which featured the title song, which would become a hit later for Santana. There was also Since You've Been Gone, that would later be a hit for Rainbow. Ballard got a lot of airplay in 1980 with Barnett Dogs, and the hit On the Rebound. Another big album, The Fire Still Burns in 1985, which included the title song and Dream On. But behind the scenes, Ballard was shaping rock radio as a songwriter for hire. He penned New York Groove, which helped Ace Frehley become the most successful Kiss member in the late 80s to record a solo album. He wrote So You Win Again for Hot Chocolate, as mentioned, Winning for Santana. I Know There's Something Going On for Frida of ABBA. You Can Do Magic for America, and another one for Rainbow, I Surrender. While never being a main household name, the rockers know who Russ Ballard is. His fingerprints are all over classic rock. He is the man behind the hits, the voice you've heard 100 times. Quietly prolific and eternally underrated. Russ Ballard, easily an architect of the 70s and 80s and beyond. Since You've Been Gone, you redid that?
I got on the stage with Rainbow at the O2 in London. Richie said to me, "Why don't you come on and do, come on and do something, And I said, at the sound check, I said, Since You've Been Gone, you want me to do Since You've Been Gone? He said, yeah. I said, so what's the arrangement, And he said, well, we only do it from the middle section, from the instrumental. Da 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 da. Only do it from there, And I said, okay. And then the last chorus is, yeah. I said, so I'm going to be on the stage for what, 1 minute 45? He went, yeah. So I went on there, and the only one I didn't speak to in the band was Ronnie Romero. I didn't have a chat with Ronnie, but and then Ronnie wrote to me and said, can you write me a tune? Because we've got this now we have this kind of we're affiliated, together, obviously. So I said, yeah, and I've sent him a song. And he said the other day, I heard him say on the stage, I was on the stage with him doing Since You've Been Gone, actually, doing the harmony underneath him, And he said, I'm going to be doing one of Russ's songs on my next album. So that'll be nice. But I hadn't met Ronnie then, but I had met him. But I did write that for him.
Well, what else can you tell me about Since You've Been Gone?
The song was that took an hour. That took an hour, probably,
Is that
maybe.
regular for you?
In my life, the quickest songs have been the most successful. New York Groove took 2 hours to write the lyrics and everything in the studio with the band and teach the band what the song was. I Surrender took a bit longer because it had more chords to it, and I thought this is never going to be a hit because there's too many. It's too complicated, and no band wants to say I surrender. They want to say never surrender. But I wrote it because that's how I am. Sometimes it's easier to surrender and have a good life. And who wants to always be? Who wants to be the bully, not me?
So your version of Since You've Been Gone, am I hearing a cowbell in there? What is that?
Yeah, it's a cowbell in there. Yeah, ding, 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 ding. Yeah, it's cowbell. Well done. Well
I,
done. Yeah.
I talked to the Blue Oyster Cult guys quite a few times, and somehow the cowbell always comes up.
It does work. It does work, doesn't it? It does work. If you're doing something, it's got to, ding, 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 ding. It's great. It feels great. Yeah.
Is that about a woman?
The idea of I get the same old dream, same time every night, fall to the ground, and I wake up. I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
That does. I had that dream when I was a kid. I had it a lot. People tell me it's an insecurity dream. I had that a lot, but these four walls are closing in. Think of the fix you put me in. The idea that came really from those American films I used to see at Saturday morning pictures when I was a kid. When you see something like, I don't know, Superman or whatever, you see, they'd be in this terrible space and they'd be locked in, and the walls would be closing in on the guy. That's the most incredibly well, I think it happened to James Bond as well, didn't it? With that sort of cutting the gold in Goldfinger, and it was just going between his legs, going up there like that, and it's the most. It's not a good feeling. That's real insecurity feeling. And in the night I stand beneath the backstreet light, I read the words that you wrote, that you said to me. I can take the afternoon, but nighttime comes around too soon. You can't. There's that insecurity feeling, and I think we've had that, when you have that feeling of having a girlfriend and losing and coming back again together. Oh, it's a great feeling. It's like losing your life when you were a kid, having a girlfriend and her walking away. With New York Groove, I'd done a Daughtry album. I'd done his solo album, done his first album actually as well, did his second album, and I finished the album, cut it, listened to it, and we thought, the cut's not that good. Roger said, why don't you go to Sterling Sound in New York? Because it's so I go out to Sterling Sound, and on the way there, I thought I hadn't been to New York for a couple of years, I think then. No, probably 18 months. On the plane, I thought, no, I'm back in the New York Groove. And I actually thought that it's a great title. And I wrote it down, went into the studio with the band with Hello, and I had no idea what I was going to be doing, but all I had was a harmonica, a super vamper, a harp, a blues harp, and I wanted to do something in Bo Diddley, gat, 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 gat. And I was going, all set up in the studio, and I said, right, okay, E. Been a year since I was here. B. On the street, I'm just B. A. To the left and to the right. Okay, write the words down. And that's how we did it. That's how we did the song, and we finished that from start to finish in, as I said, 2 hours, setting up on everything, because I used to get studio time from my friends. My friend's dad had a studio, that was a professional studio, so I used to get downtime, he said, let me have it. So that's how that happened. And it got to number 7 by Hello. It got to number 7 actually by Ace as well in Billboard.
You mentioned Yogananda. Did you read Autobiography of a Yogi?
Yeah, but I've read a lot of that stuff, Swami Narayanananda, and I remember Secrets of Mind Control was the first thing that really turned me on years ago. The Secrets of Mind Control are about, I thought, oh wow, I've got to get some of that in mind control. That's just what I needed. But they're all good, they're all uplifting. They're all so uplifting, and the moment one commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events and material assistance comes forth that no one could have dreamt would appear. So if you can do something, or dream you can. Begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it.
Reading Seven Habits to Highly Effective People, one of the things that stuck to me, he's in a subway and the guy sits down and there's kids just jumping all over the subway and he's like getting perturbed. He's going, what's going on here? And he's ready to turn to the man and say, get on to, handle your freaking kids. And the man looks at Stephen Covey and says, oh, they lost their mother today. And the
Oh,
paradigm is boom.
That's a story and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You never know what's going on in someone's brain. When you know somebody, kids, we all have had a trauma growing up. Some have had less than the others. I happen to have had a great mum and dad and brother. They've all gone, but two brothers actually. They've all gone. But what great people they were, and they looked after me. And even through, they thought when I was depressed, they thought I'd got onto drugs big time. The only drugs I got onto were legal, but I had a great mum and dad, and they cared for us.
Were they musical?
Yeah, my dad was a drummer. And he played piano. He had more qualifications than me, actually, but he was a good drummer. He's a Dixieland drummer, so he played, da boo da boo doo da boo doo ba ba da doo doo da boo doo ba da doo da. He was a great. He had a great band. He had a band. He ran dances for 28 years.
Wow.
Then he went to Liverpool during the war. He was sent to Liverpool. He had my brother was born in Liverpool. My mum was pregnant with me in Liverpool, funnily enough. And my brother had a Scouse accent when he came down to London. But when he went to Liverpool, he ran dances there too. He was an action man, but he was such a lovely man. He was a basic kind of man, John. Very basic. When I say basic, an ordinary man, but he wasn't ordinary. He wasn't. He used to think of himself as an ordinary man, but he wasn't ordinary.
Did they see your success?
Yeah. They saw the right way through the Argent thing, and I was with Adam Faith before that, so I was on. When I was 16, 17, 18, I was on television like every week because I was behind Adam Faith, and we were playing on. And there was only 2 TV channels, so at that time, I was always on. Some people used to recognize me in the street and stuff. But that was with Adam Faith in the Roulettes then. And then I was in the Unit 4+2. And then Argent, so over years and years. But, oh dear, it's so lucky, so lucky.
When I heard God Gave Rock and Roll to You, I remember the first thing I'm going, hey, that's a good hippie song. That's got that hippie vibe to it.
But I'm a hippie. I say to people, they say, and I said to Rod Argent, because Rod Argent's not been too good, he's had a bit of a rough time. He's left the Zombies for his health reasons, actually. So I phoned Rod to see how he was, and he said, I'm okay, I'm okay, Dad, I don't know. And he asked, how are you anyway? And we were talking, and I said, because I don't see Rod that often, and I was talking about something spiritual, and he said something, and I said, Rod, I'm a monk. He said, what? I said, I'm a monk. I live like a monk. Sort of thing. I'm a monk hippie. I'm still a hippie. I think that way. It's limitless. It's limitless, a few weeks ago, my wife died last March. She died almost a year ago. And I was with her the night that she died, actually, but strange enough, it affected our daughter quite bad, and my daughter lives next door. It's only a minute away. And I've had things happen in my life you wouldn't believe, John, really, spiritual things. Before, years ago, spiritual things where I was always open-minded, and I'm still open-minded, but I've had things happen to me. I was 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks ago, I was on my bed, putting my trousers on, right? Putting my tracksuit bottoms like now. And I was putting these things on. And the only person in the house was my lady friend who was in the bedroom next door. She's in the bedroom next door to me. She was there. She's always in that bedroom. I've got my bedroom here, and I'm putting my clothes on, pulling up my trousers, and they're halfway up to my knees. And my door, which was here, it went like this. And I went, just a second, just a second. And I put my trousers on. I thought, this must be important because it was so loud. I put the trousers on. I ran out there and went, because her door was open. And I went, what's the problem, Denny? And she wasn't there. I ran down the stairs. She was in the kitchen. She was watching, making tea and watching the TV. I said, did you just open the door? She said, no. I said, it just went like that. And freaky. But now things are happening to me just very, very freaky,
More so as you get older?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more so. You wonder about, obviously you think as you're on the journey, you wonder about it. Is it psychological? That's not psychological because that was real. But years ago when I was in hospital, and I was getting terrible headaches and things. My mum and dad were coming up to see me into London. That was a half an hour train journey and then another 20 minutes to get to the hospital. And they did it every night. They'd come up to see me. And I was in there for 8 weeks. And they were worried about me because I was getting these headaches. And the doctor prescribed Codis tablets 4 times a day to stop the pain. But I was depressed then. Mm-hmm. This is 61. Yeah. So every day they would come up. And all that way, because I was a spoiled brat, to be honest. I was a loving brat, but I was a spoiled brat. And they allowed me to say, there's no point in coming up. I can't speak to you. I feel so low. And they would go home, and come up the next day. Why? I don't know why you're bothering to come out. I just feel so low, It was like that. And I was in there for probably 6 weeks like that. And one day, I woke up and it was gone. The darkness was gone. Everything, the feeling was just amazing, I felt so happy. I couldn't wait to see them that night, And they used to come in for 25 minutes. It's supposed to be half an hour. Actually, the bell went sort of 5 minutes from the end. So they came in, Dad sat there, Mum sat there, and she said to me, they could see I was happy. And they went, are you wearing perfume? I said, no, I was, I'm 15. And I said, no, no. They said, oh. And I said, I feel so good. And it was the opposite, I feel so good I could come out. And she said, Dad, both of them went, oh, don't leave this. What? She said, I phoned Ted Fricker yesterday. He was a famous faith healer in London, famous faith healer. He got a lot of press and stuff, a faith healer. She phoned this faith healer who said, oh, I'd love to go and see him. I can't see him. He said, I've got so much I'm doing, so many people to see. And I could imagine that. I'll give him absent healing. That was yesterday. That was the day before they came up, right? He said, I'll give him absent healing. Well, this story goes on for a long time because I never met him, not for 18 years. But I did a TV show. In 1978. And it was a quiz. And I was pretty good at sort of remembering who played what, who did what, songs and stuff. It was a quiz on TV on BBC. And I had Errol Brown from Hot Chocolate with me. I had my friend Chas Hodges, and it was my team. On the way home, I said to my friend Chas, who was Chas and Dave, I said, do you like an Italian meal? We go past a good friend of mine's got an Italian restaurant here. We go in there and we sit down and we order food. And the guys in there were friends of mine. we were talking. Suddenly, my old friend came over. He was about 20 years older than me, 25 years older than me. Came over and did, Russ. I said, introduced him. He said, I've got to go. He said, I'm with a friend. Oh, okay. He said, he's a faith healer. And I said, is he? I really? He said, yeah, it's a faith healer. And I said, what's his name? Ted Fricker. I said, you're kidding. He gave me healing in 1961. He went, just a second, I'll go and get him. And he was an old man then, very old man. He came over, you know. And I said, you gave me healing in 1961. He said, did I? I said, yeah, you gave me absent healing. And I didn't see you, but you gave me absent healing. My mother spoke to you. He said, how is mummy? I said, she could smell perfume around the bed. He said, that's my aftershave. He said, if I give absent healing, everybody could smell that aftershave, which I've always had. This is what he was saying anyway. He said, have you read my book? I said, no, what book? He said, I'll see you. I'll see you again. Let's get together. We'll come here. And he came with my friend who was a businessman. They came together and brought some other people. And he gave me his book, which is called God is My Witness. And it's got all his adventures in there, his adventures of healing people, very famous people. At that time, he said to me, he said, there's a chapter in there. He said, when I got a call from Prince Charles' secretary. And Prince Charles, he said he wants to meet you. He said, so, yeah, he said, we drove to Buckingham Palace with his wife, Grace. And they went in there and it was the time, he said, and we also went to the, it was the time when Princess, Diana.
Yeah.
They were just getting married. He said, I went to the stag party. They had a party for the guys. He said, then we went to the wedding. We were invited to the wedding. He said, but Prince Charles, when I met him, he said, I have very similar feelings to the ones that you convey in the book. He said, I get those feelings. He said, and I wanted to speak to you. He said, so they were friends. Then he and I became friends, Ted Fricker, and we became very good friends. And he then was getting on. And I was in my 40s, early 40s. And then he said, you like wine? We said, I could introduce you to the wine society, and I still get my wine from that wine society. So we were very good friends. Very, very sad when he went. But I did see him a few times after that, and I went to our mutual friend's mother's birthday party at the same restaurant. And Ted was sat there, and I thought he'd had a stroke. And I went up to him and held his hand, and to shake his hand, and he couldn't speak to me, and he held out his hand to me, and we shook hands, and wouldn't let it go, and I was just stuck there like chatting to people. He was just holding my hand. He wasn't saying anything. Whether I thought he'd had a stroke, but I don't know. But he was holding my hand. I was speaking to my friends like this for about half an hour. It was beautiful. But these things happen. That's the biggest thing that ever happened to me. And this thing 2 weeks ago, bang bang on the door. But it's happening more and more now.
Remember, if you want to help the channel, you can always make a donation via PayPal. There's links on all our videos. When you join our Patreon, you can join right now. You'll have access to hundreds of clips that have not even been put on YouTube yet. You'll be the first person to see them as a member of our Patreon. The link is in the description. You can also buy a t-shirt or a cap, a whole bunch of clothing with our logo on it. The link is on there as well. When you subscribe, make sure you click the bell notification so you don't miss anything. But comment on our videos, like them, and share them on social media. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.